Welcome to the Vision and Purpose podcast, where we dive deep into the lives of incredible people who have made a mark on the world. Join us as we explore the journeys, stories, and passions of individuals who have achieved extraordinary feats, shattered barriers, and inspired us all. And now your host, Dr. Sharon H. Porter. Welcome to Vision and Purpose Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sharon H. Porter. Today, we are featuring transformational mindset coach, Kisha Woods. Coach K. Woods is the founder of Upgraded Mindsets, LLC, and an inspiration to many. She's an author, a mentor, a serial entrepreneur, and the host of Empowering Real Talk podcasts. Throughout the years, she silently struggled with her mental well-being. She reached a dangerous breaking point in March of 2020. She documented the first 30 days of her transformational shift and later turned it into an Amazon best-selling book, From Havoc to Healing, 30 Days of Reconditioning. This book is meant to inspire individuals to understand the importance of beginning their healing journey. Coach K. Woods, how are you?
I am good. And so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's just a delight. I love it. The mindset coach, transformational, all things transformational. I love that. And, I introduced you with a few titles, but please take the opportunity right now to introduce yourself and explain a little more about what you do.
Sure. Well, as you said, I am a transformational mindset coach. I actually work with women, but more so women who are entrepreneurial minded. We sometimes live in outdated thinking methods. So in order for us to grow, we've got to kind of really identify who we are, figure out what our personal purpose is, so we can gain the clarity to, one, live our best life, but also to start that business that we thought was never possible. So entrepreneurial minded women are women who either have a business and are just completely stuck and have no idea how to move forward, or they've got an idea in mind, but they just don't have the right support team to help them begin the process, and just being an overall supportive person for them and unbiased, because as women, we know that we feel shame sometimes. We're scared to jump out and things like that. And I just want to be that overall support system, for us to live our best life, be fulfilled, satisfied, and accomplish everything that we thought that we couldn't, because that's really what I'm doing. So I want to be able to open my hand up to other women to be able to do the same thing.
I love it. I really do. And so for those out there that may be listening or viewing this interview and not quite sure what mindset is, can you give us a brief description of what that really means?
Sure. Mindset is basically what you think, how you think, your processes behind the methods that you do and that you carry. It's important for us to really think, and we sometimes react off of emotion. We don't apply our mind to anything. So what happens is we do things that aren't necessarily aligned with our beliefs, our values, and then we beat ourselves up because it's not something that was aligned with us. So really working with our mindset is going to help you say, you know what? This is what I want to do. Applying the thoughts that, you don't know that exist, because a lot of times we don't even know what, as you said, don't know what mindset is. So it's really just you really putting forth your thoughts and taking action on those thoughts and kind of being unapologetic about your thoughts, because they're your thoughts. You are an individual, and your mind is where everything begins. Every choice, every decision, every thought. And you can't take that lightly. So just really, making those shifts to empower your mind, is really what mindset is all about.
I love it. I love it. And what about these mindset challenges that people face? So many times, we hear about the limiting beliefs, the self-doubt, and all those things. But are there some additional mindset challenges that people face that you've worked with?
Absolutely. Societal challenges all day long, because people believe that things have gone a certain way this many times. Like, for example, I'll say somebody might have been raised in a Christian faith. And when they get older, because that's what they've believed and that's what they have been, it's been embedded in them, they believe that that's something that they're supposed to do forever. Not saying that they shouldn't be a believer, but the thing is, if they are struggling with it mentally, then it may not be something that's necessarily aligned with them. So the old mindset of just because my mom and dad had this faith and this belief, I automatically am supposed to have it. That's what I call an outdated thinking, outdated mindset. So really us reflecting on who we are and maybe having to fine tune that a little bit, fine tuning your religious beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, how you pray, just maybe meditation, just making those overall shifts, because this is what you want. It's what aligns with you. It's what makes you feel comfortable, fulfilled, like you're living your life instead of living life for others. So I feel like society really has a big part of programming us to believe that we're supposed to operate in somebody else's belief systems when they're not necessarily aligned with us.
Wow. And I'm sure in your practice and even with yourself, because in March 2020 and everyone knows around the world that was right when the pandemic hit. And so I really, want to ask, was that part of that struggle that you had? And so, really take us through that moment, because that's when you yourself had a mindset shift.
Indeed.
So talk us through that.
So I have spent a life of people pleasing. And I had the outdated belief system of, if I did for everybody else, and always readily available for everybody else, I would be blessed in that magnitude. I no longer believe that, because what was happening is I was going and doing for everybody else. But when it was time to apply that to me, I had absolutely nothing. I was completely empty inside, but I still had that old mindset of, oh, well, I just got to keep going. I got to keep doing for everybody else. I, am a cancer survivor, was doing for everybody else during my chemo and radiation treatments. And the death of my sister, I took on her two boys, and started raising them with no hesitation. There was just so many life challenges that forced me to say, you know what, I'm going to keep going. And don't get me wrong, I don't have any regrets and I wouldn't change anything. The only thing that I would change is my lack of self-prioritization, because I was not prioritizing me. So March of 2020 was kind of that breaking point. We were uncertain with everything in the world. And a lot of things were really just kind of taking its toll on me, but I was suppressing them and still trying to live life. But I was angry all the time. My family will tell you now, like, you used to holler just at the drop of a dime. You used to fuss about everything. And I look back and it was because I was just angry at myself, because I wasn't where I felt I needed to be in life. I was putting people's needs ahead of me and I was tired of it. Long story short. So March of 2020, because of the uncertainties that we were facing at that time, that was kind of a breaking point for me. With everything else that I had suppressed, things started coming out the seams. They was cracking. So March of 2020, I had to step back from social media at a time where that's all we knew. That's all we could do. I had to take a 30-day fast. And that's actually when I wrote my book. At the time, I didn't realize it was going to be a book. It was my journal at the time, but I just wrote so many things that was going through my head. But it was that time for me to make those shifts and start my healing journey. Because again, I never properly grieved the death of my sister. I can go further back and say I never properly grieved the death of my grandmother who raised me. As women, we suppress and suppress and suppress, and we give ourselves this strong woman stigma. And unfortunately, that strong woman stigma almost broke me. So I just made those shifts and began the turnaround at that time. And whew, baby, it's definitely been a journey, let me tell you.
Wow, and you speak on, it makes me think of 2 points, all that you said. The first one being, you talked about the social media fast, right? 30 days. Is that something you would encourage people to do on a regular basis? Because
Absolutely.
I want you to talk about that a little bit, because social media has its own way of creeping into, your mind. And so talk about what that did for you, for relieving yourself of that for a full 30 days.
So because I was just so programmed to log on, as soon as you wake up in the morning, that's the first thing to do is grab our phone and we get to scrolling. Um, I had to make some changes. One thing that is important, that when you are trying to remove something, you have to have something to replace it. So the replacement was me journaling at that time. Um, it also allowed me to start thinking about other things in life, what I wanted, longer term goals, where I wanted to be. Was I ready to relocate at that time? With my relationship at that time, I was able to think about so much other stuff. A lot of times we go to social media because we want to deflect our own struggles. We want to deflect our own problems. And me not having social media, I couldn't do that. So I had to face them head on. And I highly encourage a regular. I actually detox from social media every quarter. I don't go a full 30 days, but I at least do a 3-day fast. Sometimes I'll do a 7. Sometimes I'll do 2 weeks. It just can vary. But I vowed at that time that I was going to make that a habit for me to be able to regroup, refocus, realign, whatever it is that I needed to do at that time without the distractions of social media, because social media is a big distraction. Now, do I utilize social media as an entrepreneur? Absolutely. But I also understand that if I need to log off, I'm going to log off. I'm very unapologetic about that. I actually wrote a whole guide that I have on my website, the importance of logging off for your sanity, because you being off of social media is going to allow you time to say, you know what, let me focus on this instead of running to social media because you really don't want to do it. Right. It's a deflection. And you logging off, sometimes even for a day, can help you get some clarity about yourself. And we need clarity in this world, especially today. Clarity is so necessary. So I highly encourage taking a detox, logging off, deactivating, whatever it is that you need to do so you can focus on other things that are going to help you become a more fulfilling version of you.
I really, really love that. Another point you touched on was being a strong woman, right? And so we have recently heard or seen on social media, check on your strong friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that could not be a truer statement. And it sounded like that was the space where you were. Sound like you were the one that was used to carrying all the loads, right?
Yes,
And at that given point, you actually needed someone.
I did.
So talk about being that strong woman, and I'm using air quotes for that because
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a curse at times that we put ourselves in this space that we can't be vulnerable and say that we need help or we need
Yes.
time to. So talk a little bit about that.
I really advocate for that now. Before, again, as I said, I thought that me just helping everybody was going to allow me to have my blessings, was going to allow me to say, you know what, I'm living my best life because I'm helping everybody else. But in all actuality, that's not what it did. I didn't get the sense of fulfillment from helping. I was always frustrated and angry. And we don't have to live life like that. No matter what is going on in the world and society, we do not have to live angry, frustrated lives. And because, again, I believe it's a programming thing for us to believe that we're supposed to be frustrated. And because that's just us doing what we do as moms or wives or daughters, I don't believe that. So being able to say, I needed to come from a space of healing instead of the havoc. I don't want to be the strong woman. I don't want to be the strong friend anymore. I want to be supported. And I say that daily because, our friends and our family can be there for us, but sometimes they are biased. And when we may need a listening ear, they don't understand that sometimes we just want somebody to listen to us. We just want to be supported by just listening. But nobody could do that for me because I was too busy doing it for everybody else. So when it was time for me to say, hey, I need that help, nobody could do anything. And they're just looking at me like, because they don't know how, because I've carried that load for so long. I lost my sister, which I honestly could say was probably my support. But she's been gone since 2009. So her being gone, I didn't have that. And I didn't feel like no one else had the capacity to handle that, with me. So it made me angry. It made me, I don't want to call myself bitter because I wasn't bitter. I was more just angry and hurt because I didn't have the support system that I knew I needed to have looking back. And it's important for us to have that. And sometimes it's not our family and friends. And that was one of the biggest realizations that I had, is understanding that your family and friends may not be your number one support system, especially during the vulnerable times. Um, Defining ourselves as a strong woman, in my opinion, as soon as you say that, the first thing people say is, oh, she good. She don't need no help. I most definitely need help. I most definitely need support. I most definitely want to be encouraged, and inspired just like I do as well. So I don't define myself as that. I now switch it and I say I'm a woman of strength, which carries a different definition to me. But I do not define myself as a strong woman because I do want to be supported. I do want that backup. I do want that positive reinforcement. And because I don't define myself as that anymore, I now align myself with those that are able to give it.
I love it. I love it. And that really brings me to self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think self-awareness plays in mindset transformation?
I believe that it's critical, because if you're not aware of self, then you don't know what it is that you want. I talk to many women, those that have become clients, and they just are like, oh, I'm just living day by day. Where I don't want us to live day by day anymore. I want us to be able to have goals for ourselves. I want us to be able to say, you know what, in 2 years from now, I want to have this implemented. I want to make moves. Not saying things can't be adjusted, but I want us to start making plans for ourselves. I want us to, you know, figure out that we can live our best life. It's never too late. I began my mindset transformation at 44 years old. Somebody could have looked at that and been like, girl, it's too late. You stuck in your ways. No, I'm not. I needed to make those shifts. And it was ugly. I won't tell anybody that the journey was pretty, but that journey was necessary. And just us accepting the fact and being accountable, for things that we've gone through in life, things we had control of, things we may not have had control of. It's super important to be aware that, yes, you might have allowed that relationship to be a little bit longer than it should have. Yes, you probably, did more for people than they've done for you. But just accepting that is critical so you can become more self-aware and be able to pick up on those signals so you can be like, oh, no, I ain't doing that no more. No, absolutely not. So yeah, self-awareness is very
Yeah,
critical
and I
to
love
make.
that. And it's really knowing your limitations, knowing
Absolutely.
where you draw the line.
Yeah, it's facts. You have
That's
to.
it.
The boundaries are so
Yes,
necessary, guys. So
absolutely.
necessary.
Absolutely. But you have to be aware of them. I love it.
Mhm.
So, what is the impact of your mindset on stress management and just your overall well-being? Because we know certain things affect our mindset. It's a variety of things,
Right.
right? But stress, it has to be one of the top.
Yeah.
And so some people can manage it and some people can't, right? And so, what's the impact of a mindset for someone who is trying to handle the stress that is presented in their lives?
The most important thing that I would suggest to us is life is gonna life. Life be life in. We cannot control everything that go on outside of us, right? So what I suggest is to put policies in place so when life does life, you have some strategies to say, you know what, I planned for things like this. I know that something was going to occur, or I knew there was going to be some reroutes or something like that. So instead of the wall being a brick one like the one behind me, it can be rubber so you can bounce right back off and keep going. So I just recommend having some type of strategy in place for when stress does happen.
Yeah.
As mothers, again, as wives, as daughters, we understand that, and especially us being emotional. But it's super important for us to have a policy in place so when these things do happen, we're not breaking down at the wayside and saying, oh my God, I can't handle this. You can handle it because you have a policy in place for
Mhm.
something like this when it occurs. So just putting your self policy in place is so critical because, again, life is going to life. We
Yes.
can't control the outside world. We can't control the things sometimes that we see and hear. But what we do is can control how we respond to them. So
Yeah.
just being effective and putting a strategy in place for that, I think is critical.
And I really think that speaks to being able to influence what you can, right? And
Absolutely.
control. And I think stress comes a lot when people try to control things that we have no control of.
Let's talk about it.
And that's something that I had to learn, though. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because
me too.
early on in my entrepreneurial career, even in life, used to stress out a lot. And then I figured out, I found out that it was over things that I really had no control over. And
Yeah.
so once you start knowing that and focusing on things that you can control, the stress comes down.
Yes. We tell our friends, don't do this, and you don't do that. And then when they do it again, we mad trying to control everything. We
Yeah,
cannot.
you cannot.
The only thing that we can control is us,
That's
and
it.
as you, me, and however you want to handle that.
Yes.
So once I really came to that understanding, and it was a harsh reality, and I
Yeah.
was really devastated behind it because I wanted everybody to grow with me. I
Yes.
wanted everybody to, understand that where I'm going. But unfortunately, the reality of it was everybody wasn't ready to grow.
No.
And because of that, there were some things and people that I had to leave behind.
Yeah.
No love lost, no ill feelings, but I had to do what's best for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about your podcast now. I love it. I want you to sort of give us the background on that because, you, like you said, real talk, and I love it.
Yes,
Unfiltered,
absolutely.
raw. I love it.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little
Um,
bit about your podcast. How did you get started with that? And just tell us about it.
Sure. Well, I kicked off the podcast, and honestly, it wasn't always called Empowering Real Talk. I can't even remember what the old name was, but I really started it during the pandemic because I like to talk. So it was like, hey, let's start a podcast. It seemed like at the time during the pandemic, everybody was doing this. So I'm like, let me start one. I had conversations with my business partner, and I would get on there and just kind of, but I would definitely give some raw and uncut conversations. So it was like, okay, and I always talked about how I empower women, and I was like, okay, empowering real talk. So I kind of came up with that name, and now I'm really focusing on like helping us break the negative stigmas of personal and entrepreneurial growth, which actually I'm kind of in the small rebranding phase of the name because now the focus is to now continue to help entrepreneurs, which is something that I've aligned myself in now. So I want to incorporate the podcast so they know entrepreneurs will get, great feedback, resources, tips to help them grow. But really just having those uncomfortable conversations, whether we're talking about mental awareness, whether we're talking about personal growth, entrepreneurial growth, whether we're talking about financial literacy. I really want us to be able to have these conversations that are necessary. And that's kind of my tagline. These conversations are necessary. We don't want to talk about mental awareness. And especially us as Black people, as our culture, we try to suppress that. We don't want to talk about, mental illness. We don't want to talk about therapy. We don't want to talk about, those things that are constantly holding us back. The restricted state of mind of a lot of people, believing that their sense of entitlement, people are just, expecting things to be handed to them. They don't want to work for it. All of those conversations are necessary conversations. And I think that they're empowering real talk conversations. So just being able to say, hey, you don't know what you're going to get over here, but what you are going to get is some value and insight that can hopefully help you to begin the journey of making the shift to become your unapologetic self.
I love it. So, with the Empire and Real Talk and Unfiltered, I'm sure you've had guests because one thing, you want people to be straight up, you want them to be
Absolutely.
real, and I love that because that's how you're going to get help. I love that. And so you spoke on the entrepreneurial journey, right? And so I know that I don't think you started out as a full-time
I
entrepreneur.
did
You were
not.
sort of forced into that
It was.
entrepreneur space, right? And so I want you to talk a little bit about that because so many times right now, I'm not a full-time entrepreneur. And a lot of times people are out there listening and not understanding that you were in corporate
Yeah, I was
prior to
definitely in
this.
corporate America. I
Absolutely.
definitely was.
Right.
Um, I really when I started Upgraded Mindsets, so I launched Upgraded Mindsets, which is actually my official business name, in June of 2020. I knew I wanted to be a life coach. I knew I wanted to help women. I knew that has always been, that's actually something that came to fruition during my 30-day fast.
Wow.
See how the power of the mind work? When you got clarity, all kind of things come out.
Wow.
Tip folks, that's a tip for y'all. But so what happened is in November of 2020, which actually, I was actually fired from my job. I was let go of my corporate job of almost 7 years. It totally surprised me, took me off guard. I really didn't have an exit strategy at the time to be a full-time entrepreneur. But since it was handed to me, it was like, okay, Kisha, because not only are you on a personal transformational journey still, because November, I was still shifting, I was still, aligning myself and getting rid of outdated methods. 2020 and 2021 were the toughest years with regards to that transformation. But it was like, do you want to go find another job during the pandemic? Or do you want to go ahead and step into this purpose that apparently is for you because you've been fired from your job? And that's what I decided. I decided that, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. If you'd have asked me in 2019 if I was going to be an entrepreneur, I'd have probably laughed at you. I had no desire to be an entrepreneur. I had no desire to be a full-time entrepreneur at that. I'm like, no, I'm just going to work. I got my 401k. I'm this, I'm that. I had no desire. So it's just so crazy how different a year makes. So I actually stepped into that journey full time. I didn't have a foolproof plan. I didn't have a 6-month savings, that's recommended when you are, fired or any type of emergency situations. But hey, universe said, listen, I got you. I just need you to go ahead and step into this purpose. It's not going to be an easy transfer, but I got you. And that's what happened.
Wow.
And, I've had some ups and downs, trials and tribulations. Hey, I will not tell y'all that I did not update my resume a few times.
That's right.
But, every time that thought came in, there was something that might have happened. I might have acquired a new client or an opportunity came my way. So I started paying attention to that. And every time that I had a negative thought about, following my journey, something came up and said, no, you where you need to be. You where you need to be. So it's definitely been a blessing. Coming up on 3 years, it's been almost 3 years. So 3 years as a full-time entrepreneur. I have no regrets. And that's really why I want to come back and help women to do the same, because a lot of times we don't really understand the complete method of starting a business. We think that all we got to do is get an LLC and EIN and we're good to go.
Right.
So I really want to work with us with the behind the scenes, the fully administrative things that are required, but also setting up strategies, policies, procedures, priorities, and then also aligning your personal self with your business self. So that's really where I'm at with things right now.
I love it. So how do you continually expand your knowledge on this whole mindset journey and helping entrepreneurs? What do you do to refill your toolbox?
Well, I tell you right now, I am so unapologetic when it comes to self-care, self-awareness, and just self, period. The first 30 minutes of my day every morning is completely focused on me. I have a do not disturb time. There's just so many small things that I apply. I meditate twice a day. I'm currently attending the University of Metaphysics. I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's in holistic counseling to pursue my doctorate, my master's doctorate. So I'm on that journey right now as well, because it's just something that again was aligned with me. So just really understanding that from a metaphysical standpoint is really just helped me just be so clear on so many things, but also just continuing to educate myself on our subconscious mind, and just continuing to educate myself on society and just seeing, I use social media for research purposes a lot of the times now, and just really kind of finding those pain points to really, begin to have those conversations. I like to base some of my subjects on the podcast around, some of the topics that I see on social media, because I want us to break those outdated stigmas. They just really need to be broken. And I know that I won't reach everybody, but I will be aligned with those who are supposed to be reached. So just really living in that truth for me is everything.
Wow, I love it. So it's really been a pleasure speaking with you, and I love the passion that you have
Thank you.
for just the whole mindset journey, because it really is a thing, and
It
that's what
is.
people don't understand. You can change your whole trajectory just
Mhm.
changing your mindset, and I
Absolutely.
believe that. And so to be a transformational mindset coach, I love it.
Thank you so
I
much. That
love it.
journey
So
necessary, y'all. We need it.
that's it. No,
Need it.
absolutely. Absolutely. You defined exactly what you're working on, and I love it. Now,
Thank
Coach
you.
K, tell everyone where they can connect with you, where they can find your podcast, where they can find your book, and everything that you need them to know.
Absolutely. So I am on all social media platforms at Coach KAYWDS. The podcast also has its own Instagram, which is Empowering Real Talk. I have my podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and pretty much about 14 other platforms right now. So if you really just Google Empowering Real Talk, you will definitely find me. My website is upgraded mindsets with the Z.life. You can actually find the services that I offer there. I do also have an online store where I offer positivity promoted hoodies, cups, hats, just continuing the journey of empowering and empowering positivity for everyone. You can also find my book over there as well, but you can also get my book on Amazon, and it's From Havoc to Healing: 30 Days of Reconditioning. And then, of course, like I said, with Empowering Real Talk, I feel like the journey, the conversations, everything is super necessary. You can find everything that I have going on. I host monthly meetups virtually as well as in person, just all about another level of supporting us women to be the best versions of ourselves. So you can pretty much just find me anywhere. Upgraded Mindsets. If you Google it, baby, you're going to find me.
I love it. I love it. Guys, we have had the absolute wonderful pleasure to talk and sit and chat with Coach K Woods. She is an author. She is a transformational mindset coach. She is the host of a magnificent podcast, a serial entrepreneur, and so much more. We thank you, Coach K. We appreciate you, and we cannot wait to see what's next in this rebranding that you are doing.
Thank you so much, Dr. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank
Oh
you for
my
having
God.
me.
Absolutely. Guys, we want to say thank you for joining us. Again, I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, host of Vision and Purpose Podcast. You can catch us here every Thursday at 5 p.m., and that's Eastern Time. Have an amazing evening. Thank you for joining another episode of Vision and Purpose Podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe. Please join us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.